So, two very distinguished football coaches, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So, Tom and Tiger, this year, their teams won their 7th state championship in the state of Ohio. St. Ed's in Division 1, and Kirtland have done it in 5 and 6, right? No other divisions, those are the only two, right? And why do I say 7? Because that's a really unique number and a great number. Because they became the 8th and 9th schools in the state of Ohio high school football history to win at least 7 state championships. So there's only 7 other schools that have done it. Tiger obviously has won 7 here in Kirtland and have been to 13 out of the last 14 or 12 out of the last 13. 12 out of the last 13 state championships, Kirtland has played in them and won 7 of them. Tom comes, as I said, Coach Fanati won the first 2 at St. Ed's. Tom has won the last 5 at St. Ed's and 3 in a row. I don't know how many schools in the state of Ohio have won 3 state championships in a row, but it's not many. So that's a great accomplishment as well. He also won a state championship at Lake Catholic. So Tom has 6 under his coaching tenure. And hopefully next year Tom will get number 7 and Tiger will get number 8, right? So, and for those of you, I am wearing my St. Ed's colors, like I said, but I do have my Kirtland colors on. I do still film for Tiger, for their football team. I've been doing that for a long time, and it's a lot of fun. So I would not ever get rid of my Kirtland colors, I promise you. But this is, I mean, Tom's here by himself. He needs somebody with some St. Ed's colors, right? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Burnett. Thank you both for coming this evening, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, John. So I'm Tom Burnett, as John mentioned. I'm the current acting president of our Holy Name Society. So on behalf of the Holy Name Society, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll just cover a couple administrative things real quick. So first and foremost, a couple announcements. In September 16th here at Hanson Hall, we'll be hosting, Holy Name Society will be hosting the St. Patrick's Day party, so if you put that on your calendar, all welcome. Let's see what else I have on my list. We do have at the table with the wine, there's a sign-up sheet for Holy Name Society, so any men in the parish that are interested, or we can give you some more information. There's some pamphlets back there, and able to answer any questions you might have either after tonight, or give us a phone number and email, and we can get in touch with you that way. And then this is the first speaker. John mentioned that Tiger was here probably about 5 years ago. It's been a while since the Holy Name Society has gotten some of the speaker circuit going here at the parish, but that is our intention to get more, so keep an eye out for some future announcements for similar events like this. In terms of how we're going to handle tonight, we slotted an hour of time, so appreciate you giving the time to us, gentlemen. I'll ask some questions. I have about half a dozen, and we'll see how it goes in terms of how long it takes to respond to them. We might bounce back and forth, give each one a chance to answer, or if we're eating up too much time, we'll just give you individual questions to each gentleman. But I'm going to leave some time for question and answer from the audience. So we'll probably go about 30, 40 minutes. I'll ask some questions and we'll open up to the audience. And last point is, I know the big draw is football, obviously, some really tremendous football players, but it's faith, family, and football. So we'll probably get into the football questions closer to the end, but we really want to start with some questions around the first 2 topics. So, and I'm sure we'll weave all of it together as we go. So I'm going to use the microphone to ask some questions. I'm going to hand it over back to you, Tiger, and give you a chance. So let's start there. I'm going to hand it to Tiger after I ask this first question. So, knowing the amount of time and energy required in both teaching and the coaching profession, how has your faith guided or strengthened either your family or your role with your family, your relationship with wife, your children, your kids? And we'll leave it up there. What was the question? How has your faith guided or strengthened your family or your role in your family with your wife?
Well, I wouldn't have a wife and kids if it wasn't for my faith. That's how I met my wife, and that's number one in our lives. Is I think as a parent, like your number one goal should be to make sure all your kids get to heaven. I think that's the number one goal of a parent. You know, we do our best. It's tough. I think people think coaching football is stressful. I think that's the least stressful thing in my life. I think the most stressful thing in my life is being a parent of 4 teenagers. 16, 18, 19, and 21, and very stressful, but it's great. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So before I pass over to Tom, let me ask a quick follow-up to that one. So what do you do to instill the faith? How do you keep them kind of on the rails or focused on the same kind of prize that you get to have?
Well, we try to, all my kids have a devotional. We try to read every day. My wife and I do too. And obviously, we go to Willow Hills Friends Church. It's wonderful. When we moved here in 2006, you know, that's where we went around and felt comfortable. And we love it. The people there are great. And, you know, that's number one. Like when I grew up in my household, my dad would say, you can skip school, but you're not skipping church. Like you know, if you don't want to go to school, if your buddies are going out to the lake to go swimming, he didn't like that either, don't get me wrong. But you could do that, but you weren't skipping church on Sunday morning. That was a non-negotiable. So my mom and dad had a lot to do with me growing up in a family of faith, and I want my kids to do the same.
Thank you. Tom, same question.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thought this was on. Thanks, Tom. First of all, thanks for having me here. Tom and I went to college together with Dale and Brian Glow back there. Father Dave was very instrumental. When I was coaching with Catholic, he was the chaplain, or priest there, did all our team masses. So a lot of connections. And I brought my dad, Tom, and my son, Tommy, here as well. Since this is about family and faith. Football is really the third of those things, faith being the first. And to me, being Catholic, the Mass is it. The Christian faith is beautiful in that, it teaches us that we all need saving. Like none of us are perfect, and we need something that warrants to save us. And of course, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And when you coach football and you're with teenage kids, you realize, just like when you're raising your own kids, no one's perfect. That's why there's forgiveness. That's why there's this. And the faith, the Christian faith, the Catholic faith, has summed it up beautifully for 2,000 years. It can't be better. It just simply can't be better. So, when you start with that recognition, I was telling Father, he did our team masses back in 99 to 2001, and we started 13 of 16 games this year with Mass, and of course we're able to do that at St. Edward. But to me, it was important. We couldn't go to, we couldn't do it in Cincinnati. There was another game that was early, and there was another conflict. We have 2 grads that are priests that say the Mass, and it's required. We have the kids are there, and what a great way to start something important. I told them before the state championship game. I said, look, I counted. We had 13 of 16 masses. I said, for some of you, this may be the only 13 you go to. For others of you, this may be an additional 13 to the 52 you attend regularly with your families. Wherever you fall in that continuum, understand this. At some point in your life, you're going to need something that's outside of you. And if you could start something special that, for 16, 17, 18-year-old in their life, that the state championship is, probably the biggest thing that they're going to compete in up to that point. And if you could start that, with this feeling, just know, when you're a father, when you're a husband, when you lose a loved one, come back on these lessons, because that's really what I think we're trying to do. It's not really win football games, it's that idea. So, that's just a little bit about, what it is. It's nice to be at a Catholic school, to be able to express that and to be able to talk about that, and that the school supports that as well. So,
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, can you do a follow-up on that?
Yeah, we get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I just want to give Tiger an opportunity to talk about prayer and the faith side of it with his team, because he does it. I'm in the locker room, I've seen it, but he also got in trouble for that too, so I'll let you talk a little bit about that as a public school guy.
We don't have to
Just
talk
say, just
about
roll the
it.
grenade in there.
We try to do a Bible study on Thursdays after practice every week, and then we pray before the games. And then we had a Final Four game a couple of years out of Glandorf, and their coach said, "Hey, after the game, win or lose, our kids are going to pray. You guys are welcome to join us." And I said that we'd love to. So I told my kids, if you want to, you can go. and then we all did, and it was snowing. It was, we won the game, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Their best player on their team, he was 6'5", 300. He had a full ride to Akron, Division I lineman. He led the prayer. When your best player is there after a big loss, like we're playing in the Final Four going to state title game and they lose. A lot of kids would just want to walk off and get out of there. And this kid played in his last game and lost, and he was in the middle of our team and their team leading the prayer. We talk about leadership, and it was great for my kids to see, and the snow was falling, and someone had took a picture and posted it, and then I got in trouble. It was a beautiful thing, and then Channel 3, Channel 5, and Channel 8 News were sitting in our parking lot the next week. So. I've been coaching 27 years, and it's been a blessing. So it's been a great run. If I get fired for praying, I'm okay with that.
Great, thank you. And I apologize, we jumped into this conversation and we started talking about your careers and coaching and faith. And I know John did an intro, but I'd be remiss if we didn't at least kind of get your backstories. We didn't get who are you, where did you come from, and how'd you get here, right? So we're all in Kirtland. I know there's probably two very different paths and origin stories of how you got here. So maybe give a little background on your past, how you got here, where you're from.
Sure. Born in Cleveland, talking to Mr. DeGennaro over here, and we grew up in the same neighborhood, Collinwood. Went to Holy Redeemer, an Italian neighborhood. Went to Holy Redeemer till I was about 10 years old, third grade. We moved out to Mayfield. Went to St. Francis, and then went to Gilmore for high school and John Carroll for college. And taught at Lake Catholic, obviously taught at University School, taught at St. Edward, taught at Highland. So I've been in different venues and different types of schools. So have some Jesuit background, Holy Cross background. St. Ed's is a Holy Cross school, so is Gilmore. Along with Akron Hoban would be the Three Brothers of Holy Cross, which is Notre Dame as well. So I was actually a head basketball coach at University School to start my career, an assistant in football. And when my father-in-law, John Gibbons, left to take the St. Ed's job in 1999, I think Father Roos hired me at Lake Catholic to be the football coach. No, I became the football coach at Lake then in 99, and been coaching football ever since then. Was the head coach at Highland for 8 years, and I've been at St. Edward 9 years. So that's kind of my background. I played 3 sports in high school, played baseball for a couple years at John Carroll, then kind of got into coaching, and just fell in love with it. Working with kids, really. I was started as trying to major in business and being an accountant. That's what my dad thought. I was good in math. He says, well, be an accountant, you work with numbers. I was in the class for 2 weeks. I hated it. I'm like, I could never see myself doing this for my life. So I kind of switched gears and was an economics major, and then got certified to teach as well. And I actually, believe it or not, I don't do anything with that, except at Highland I teach math right now. So that's how it goes. You never know where it's going to take you, which is an interesting thing as well. So we've been lucky, to be in some great games and have the success on the field. But I was telling some people earlier, that really isn't what it's about. Yes, 6 state titles, and you get the feeling you get walking off, as Tiger can tell you, when seeing the kids really enjoy that is what's most like that's what makes me feel the best. And you put so much into it. And for us this year, we signed 11 scholarship players, 5 are Power 5. The pressure was on to win it, and I'll tell you that's a tough feeling because everyone expects you to do it. And we're tied 21-21 at halftime in the state championship game, and I think Springfield had all the reason to win that game, and the pressure was on us. So I was proud of our team for how they finished. But I'll tell you, it was a sense of relief, more than joy at that point. It really was. But that's my background. I can't think to add anything else besides I was good friends with Tom in college, so that could be a good or bad thing. I don't know. You guys can figure that out.
Still trying to figure it out.
My wife went to St. Francis and grew up in Mayfield and went with him to St. Francis. I don't know if they were there the same years. They might have been 1 year together. But I lived 30 years in Pennsylvania. I was an actuary. I got out of college. I was an actuary in Pittsburgh and sat at a cubicle, really small, like about this big, for a year. doing actuarial work, and I said, I can't do this for 30 years. I didn't talk to anybody all day, and one day seemed like a week. And so, I mean, I'm very fortunate because I got a degree and a good job, and the actuarial job paid well. And, you know, I went to happy hour with a couple people from work, and they were like, one of them's like, I'm leaving, I'm going to teach math. And I said, I'd like to do that too, but I didn't have any education classes or student teaching. And I called my mom on the phone from the bar. Back then there was a payphone. The same bar, I went to the payphone, grabbed the phone, and said, hey, you care if I go back to school and get a teaching degree? She could have said, no, man, you're already off the books. I'm one of 8 kids. She could have said, no, I got 4 more kids to put through college. You're out. And I would have been an actuary probably still, but she was like, whatever you want to do. And you know, if she doesn't say that, I might not go back to school. So I went back to John Carroll. They had a 1-year deal to get masters, certified to teach. And I was going to 1 year and shoot back to PA. And this crazy Italian from Mayfield was in the same class. So here I am. But anyways, it's been a blessing. I never heard of Kirtland. We did live 7 years in PA, my wife and I. We had our kids there and stuff. I liked it. I had my friends there, my family. I was a head coach over there. Everything was great. And she's like, we're out of here. So here I am. 2006, I moved here, didn't know anybody. I remember I got locked out of my house. And I remember I went to Coop's house. He was the only guy I knew in Kirtland. My wife was out. I had 3 kids. It was 2 degrees outside in the winter. And she didn't leave me a key. And I went to his house with 3 kids and walked in and said, I got to stay here until my wife gets home. Otherwise, these 3 kids are going to freeze. But that was my first year here, and it's been wonderful for my kids. It's a great place to raise kids. I can't imagine having my 4 kids go through a different school system. I mean, we are really blessed here to have great education for our kids and great families, great kids that work hard and love each other and care about each other. It really has been awesome, and I feel very blessed.
All right, this one's coming back to you. I got another question. So, in context of your mom giving you the answer, she could have said, you're on your own, but there's a love was there and she helped you get through that. You talked about your dad's rules where you can miss school, but you're not missing church. You talked about how you spent time with your children, focus on daily devotionals and reading, praying.
Ask Jake, he's back here.
So the question I have for you is, all of this sounds very faith-based, faith-driven. How do you translate that into developing the next generation, the players, the athletes, even your students at school? Because, again, to John's point, in a public school, you can't have those types of conversations necessarily, but you're exposed to young people all the time in the community, well known in the community. So how do you develop or bring your faith into helping develop that next generation of leaders?
I just think, my wife and I try to be an example for all the kids in the high school. There's a lot of 14 to 18-year-old kids that have lots of needs. She sees it in the counseling office all the time. And I just think if we can be, just like all the other parents here, be great examples for these kids, how they are going to maybe grow up and get married and raise their family. We got a chance to show the younger generation, what a faith-based education is for your kids, and just try to be a great Christian example for the kids that you teach and coach. In a public school, you can't really talk about it all the time. He's fortunate; he can talk about it as much as he wants. But I just think for us, it's just trying to be the best example we can be, and that's all we try to do every single day.
Well, thank you. So,
Tom, similar question, but now put a different spin on it. Maybe identify what kind of principles, guiding principles that you would identify as ways to develop young athletes, students.
Yeah, as Coach was talking, I started thinking. I have 4 children, ranging from 24 to 17, as well. And as I look back to answer that question, and one of the questions Tom also had written there is, how's having kids helped you become a coach too? And I started realizing, which I didn't know as a young coach. You sort of like think and you're like, well, I'm gonna, this is how it's gonna be, and we're gonna, And I was a head coach at 24, before I was even dating anyone. So I didn't know. I thought I knew kids, but You know, when you have your own kids and you start seeing how, and I'm sure parents, grandparents, you can associate with this, they're different. Even your own kids are different. You know, and when you start seeing that and what makes one of your children tick versus another one of your children tick and what they need to hear, you become a little bit more compassionate, I think, as a coach. Realizing that not every kid on your team comes from the same background. Not everyone on your team is motivated the same exact way. You want to be fair, not equal. You're equal. You're probably failing, but you want to be fair and you want to set some standards. But to get kids to those spots, it's not the same path for everyone. You know, we have some kids that, you know, in Kirtland, in a community like this, everyone's close knit. You know, you're close by. People kind of have the same, you know, background and feeling of where they're living. And that St. Ed's are, you know, we got them from all over the place. So some are two parents, some are one parent. That would be the same case here, but you know, some live in the city, some live in the suburbs, some live in the country. You know, and so you're bringing different kind of cultures together in some ways. So I think the main word, you know, I think what kids need most in developing leaders is the word accountability. If anything we try and do in teaching kids is to be accountable. You know, simply do what you say you're going to do. And I hold them on that. You know, if I see the kid in the hallway, coach, I'll be at the workouts, and he's not there, I find him. You know, you told me you'd be there. And make them respond to that. Because they got to be accountable to their word. If that doesn't stand for anything, then what are we really doing? You know, don't tell me that. Don't say that if you're not going to follow up. Just don't slough me off like I'm going to be there. And in the great scheme of things, if the kid misses a workout, it's not the end of the world. I mean, that's not what it's about. But it's about you said it. You know, if you look me in the eye and said it, you better follow through with it. So how do you be accountable? Being on time, doing what you say you're going to do, doing right in the classroom. So we try and say A, B, C, D, and I throw E in there. You know, keep the letters in your mind. We have this in our weight room. Accountability, be a good teammate, compete, do the right thing, and be enthusiastic. If you can do those things, they kind of fit. And I heard Dick Bennett talk, you know, one time also. And if you think about these 5 biblical, you know, New Testament things, you know, what makes a good team? Number 1, passion. Passion means to suffer for something. Are you willing to suffer for something? Like, could you get your team to pay the price? You know, that's a good thing. That's why football's so great. Like, it's a team sport. You know, there's some, you know, there's injuries and that kind of stuff, but you know, it's a team sport where guys got to come together and sacrifice for each other. That's going away a little bit. You know, unity, a house divided against itself can't stand. Humility, know who we are as a team. Know who you are as an individual. How can you help the team? You know, servanthood. How can you help your teammates be better? What's your role? And finally, thankfulness. You know, the one that you have the ability to be out there playing, because some kids are born with, they can't. And I tell our kids that. Look, some kids are born with, they can't do it. You know, you're blessed. You should have gratitude just for the fact that you're able to put pads on and go do this. And secondly, no matter the outcome, have some thankfulness. You know, we both won a lot of games, but there's been a couple we lost. And you know, when you say in there, you know, be thankful for that. What I mean is, you know, can we be better from this? And sometimes that's the biggest thing to illuminate something you're doing wrong. You know, when it doesn't work. I always say this, you know, we lost the game 15-13. We might have got the onside kick at the end, kicked the field goal and won. Guess what? We played the same game. We played a terrible game, you know. But if we'd have won, it would have been covered over. And we might not have analyzed it as well and been the better team we could have been, or the team we were at the end of the year if that then transpired and we had to take the loss. Because everyone gets introspective there. So, you know, if you look at it that way, not that I'm saying you should lose, but my point is, if you could change it into a positive, okay, what can we learn from this? What did we get out of this because we lost? You know, I think that can help you. So those are kind of the things that I like to talk to the team about, and then I'll just add, I know. But the 4 pillars of our school are all line up with this. Number 1, faith formation. This is what our school says. I follow this with football. You know, these 4 combined with the A, B, C, D, E, and those 5 things I just mentioned from Coach Bennett, who's an old-time basketball coach. His son's coaching Virginia right now, still uses them. But you know, if faith formation, that's number 1, our goal. 2, relationships. That's being a great teammate, right? 3, servant leadership. You know, how can you help your teammates together? And 4, excellence. Excellence isn't success. You know, it's how you do it. It's how you do it that's important. It's how you win. It's how you lose. Those are the kind of things. How you prepare. And I think if, you know, those pillars of the school align beautifully with coaching a football team.
So,
We're going to go a little deeper into football now. I'm going to leave this a little bit of a softball question. What are some of your most memorable coaching moments? And I'm leaving it open. It could be on the field, off the field.
I mean, that's a loaded question. There's so many moments. Like my wife would say, she'll send me down to the basement to get something out of the fridge. I'll forget what she asked for when I walk down the stairs. But I can remember every play from like 2006. So I don't know what you call that, a selective memory, but
we all do.
honestly, like when I got hired, my goal, I never thought about winning the state championship. It was never my goal. When I wanted to be a head coach, I didn't even, people were like, how did you know you could be a head coach? I said, I didn't, but one guy said, hey, you want to coach our team? And I was like, sure, I'll try. This was back in PA. And it went well, but I think it went well because I love the kids. Absolutely love being with them, going to 7-on-7s. I think that's like my memories are taking these kids to 7-on-7s and pulling the van off and in the summer when it's 100 degrees and jumping in a pond. And then it's a private pond, so the cops came and kicked us out. And, just things like that the kids will remember forever. They're not going to remember a practice on Monday, but they'll remember getting kicked out of a pond when you're not supposed to be there, when there was no AC in the school van. But to me, like all those, I see so many former players back here. When I see their faces, I just remember things that we laughed at together. Going to Pitt and going to Oil City and going to. We went to Toledo to a 7-on-7 and we won that thing. So on the way back, I said, hey, let's stop in Sandusky and jump in Lake Erie. And we ordered pizza and we went to the beach and somewhere in Sandusky and we went swimming and had pizza. Like, that's the stuff. And if you do that stuff, the winning is like a product of all that stuff you do together and care about each other and work hard together. And like if you enjoy spending time together, like that's to me what I love going to these guys. They get married and they have weddings and I love going. And I feel privileged to be invited. So my memories are all that stuff. You spend so much time with these kids. In the fall, we spend 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 4 or 5 months. And that's not even counting the lifting and the 7-on-7. So if they do that 9, 10, 11, 12, you're like spending 800 hours with these kids by the time they graduate. Like you can't help but love them. Like if you don't, you shouldn't be in the business. Like you shouldn't be coaching. Because to me, that's what it's all about, the relationships with the kids. And then, the winning that's just a bonus.
Awesome. I have a feeling it's going to be a similar answer.
Yeah, I don't even have anything to say because it's the exact same thing, except I will say, tell you're a little ahead of me. I don't even hear my wife ask me to go down the basement. So, I'm not really being facetious there. But anyways, those are the things, one example, you got kids playing in college, and they're all ranging. And I get a beautiful text before UT, they're playing Georgia, and a former running back of ours is playing in the game. And he said, "Coach, we're playing. We're opening with Georgia. They were the #1 team, and they're an FCS school. They're going to get killed." But he's like, I just went back, and he kind of wrote just a beautiful thing about a memory that we kind of shared when he was playing, and and he said, I just wanted you to know that as I go into this game against Georgia. Well, we had a game that day. I forgot he was even playing Georgia that day. I wasn't even realized it. So I hadn't sent a text to him. You try and do it, you just can't stay up with it. But I went back and I got the film of the game through this site we have, and I watched it. And he had a few carries and made some yards. And I wrote him back and I said just how proud I was of the fact that how he played in that game. He caught a nice little flare pass and went up the field. And this is one of many. I have a former player that's playing on Michigan, and it was a beautiful story. Coach Harbaugh comes in. His dad played at Michigan. He was not getting recruited by Michigan. He was an Ivy League player at best. Very good football player. His name is Caden Colasar. And he was just persistent. And Coach comes down. We go down, and to make a long story short, another kid had gotten a scholarship to Michigan. And Caden was, he said, well, tell me about yourself. And I'm a 4.5 student. My whole lifelong dream was to go to Michigan. My dad played there, played with him, in fact. Coach Harbaugh threw a post to beat Ohio State in 1982 to John Colasar for the touchdown. They show it before the Michigan-Ohio State game every year. And this is his son now. And, the son wasn't bad in terms of that. But, he said, that's my lifelong dream, this and that. And the more he kept talking, we were sitting down, I couldn't believe it, I was witnessing this. And he says, He said, where would you play? He said, Coach, I'll play wherever. I'm a DB, special teams. I could play offense, but, whatever you want. I just want to be, part of something special in that. But I realized that, and I'll do my best at Pitt, or at Penn. And, he was going on talking more. They kept commiserating. He said, you know what? This is Coach Harbaugh. He said, I'll tell you what, would you pay the first semester for Michigan? He said, I'll give you a scholarship after that. He said, I hear so many kids that were begging to come from all these states that don't value what you just told me you valued. Stays true to his word. The kid goes to Michigan. He's a special teams player at Michigan. He's the MVP of their special teams captain, and he wins a national championship this year. I mean, just being persistent. He just kept calling the guy and saying, and then he kind of came to the fact that, well, I'm not going to do it. He got a chance to get an eye-to-eye with him, and he sold him. It's like one of those elevator calls or whatever they call that in business. That's what it was. I think Coach Harbaugh interviewed him right there, liked what he heard, and said, I'm giving you a scholarship to Michigan. He played there 5 years. So, those are the kind of memories. That's just one example of so many. I'm getting to the point now where my former players are bringing their kids to my football camp, which is it's kind of cool, except now that I realize I'm getting old. I used to think I was like their kind of like older brother, then I became their uncle. I'm in the dad stage, heading to grandpa, you know what I mean? So.
All right, I only got a couple left. There's a lot of coaches in here, a lot of dads that coach. What advice do you give them regarding qualities, coaching young people?
I always say fun first. Fun first. If you're coaching 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and you got 20 kids in the team, make sure next year all 20 play. If you only play the best 11 and 9 kids don't want to play the next year because they never got in, I don't care how many games you win as a youth coach, you kind of did the sport a disservice. Make sure they're having fun. I always, even at the high school level, like if I have to choose between conditioning and fun, these guys, I always choose fun. We can run or play tag, but I always choose tag. I always fall for the fun. And I think as a youth coach, if you think like that, like, should I make these kids run 40s or make them go play on the playground? Send them to the playground. Then they'll get picked up by the parents and go home, and they'll be like, I can't wait to go the next day. So as a youth coach, you want kids, if they love the sport, whether it doesn't matter the sport, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, if they love it, and they truly love it, and they have fun with it, they'll do it every day, and they're going to be better at it. If you don't love the sport, and I've seen it many, many times, many people, kids in Philadelphia, like my buddies say they kid at Minnesota, they have a bad coach one year and they hate the sport. And it breaks my heart because then they're done. I don't want to do it anymore. As a coach, you can make a kid love the sport or you can turn him off from the sport and then he never will come back. So I would say if you have 15 to 20 kids in the team and the next year all 15 to 20 want to play again, I don't care what your record was. You're a great coach. You're a great youth coach. And if they love the game, they'll work on it in the off season and they'll be better at it. Our kids are good at football because they love it. They love going to the weight room. They love going to 7-on-7s. They love trying to get better at it, And so they do it every day. We don't make them do it every day. They do it on their own, And I think that's where you got to get as a coach, to where they absolutely love what they're doing and it's not work to them.
Yeah, that's what was about youth coaches?
Coaches, yes.
Younger,
Yep.
coaching younger kids. Yeah, Coach summed it up perfect. Now, I'll talk a little on, he's got control of like what the guys are going to do. Probably the Kirtland youth and then middle school. CYO is where I'm kind of where we're living. The numbers are dwindling. Kids are playing less and less. At least in the CYO numbers. I'm not sure. I think they're up in some other outside leagues of CYO, but. When I would go talk to youth coaches, particularly for football, and Tiger's absolutely right about, for some reason, parents that either played the game or maybe some never played the game, but, they think like football, you got to be this, like, you got, and they start screaming at an 8-year-old kid. Like, in the meantime, when the kid plays baseball and he's up there, you're like, hey, you got to hit the ball, you know what I mean? Like, no one does that. But yet in football, that's what we do. That's what guys think. I don't understand that. It's still, there's a skill involved in it. You're blocking and tackling is a skill first. Yeah, there's contact in it, just like in wrestling, but it's a skill. And so is throwing a ball, catching a ball, running around, handing the ball off, etc. and so forth. So if you look at it, like Tiger's saying, where you make it fun, teaching them a skill, football is no different than any other sport. I know when I was a kid, you know, God bless his soul, Coach DeCenzo played for the Latin in Notre Dame and then went to the Green Bay Packers. You know, the first drill we did, we laid with our heads against each other, got up, and we were going to see who the toughest fifth grader was, you know. And it wasn't me. I wasn't one of them, you know. I mean, I'm lucky I stayed with it. But my point is, you know, I don't know if that, you know, but that was 1981 and 82, and that's what it was. But I think as we advance, you know, and start realizing it, that, and I think some of these rules changes are good, where the younger kids are playing on a little smaller field. You know, there's less numbers out there. You know, instead of being 11 on 11 on a 100-yard field with third graders, let's condense that a little bit. Start with flag. Let them start having fun, you know, doing the skill work that's involved. I was fortunate enough to be at, we're a Nike elite school, so that we had 50 coaches fly down for to the Pro Bowl, actually, and we had a convention. The NFL and combined with a lot of things are actually promoting, you know, one of the quickest, fastest growing sports there is, girls flag football. Girls flag football. And there's a reason behind it. They're trying to get the girls involved in football so that when they become moms, they let their kids play. You know, that is the truth. And it's a pretty good tactic, and it's working. You know, watch the Super Bowl and watch how much commercial and airtime you'll see on women's flag football. So you know, it's a skill set first that involves some contact, no question about it. But it's a skill set. And I think when you get young kids doing that, and if coaches kind of understand that, and you can hardly blame, you know, a dad that's coming out, you know, coaching a team that doesn't really, you know, they don't have the training. That's all we do for, you know, most of our lives. But you know, but you do see some kids kind of not do it anymore because of that. And you know, the more we can kind of get that across, and people in our position can kind of keep sending that message that that's really what it's about. And I tell the same thing to our freshman coaches, like, look, I don't really care. You know, the record, yeah, we want to win. If we have 80, if we have 60 the next year, you're going to have some attrition when you have those high numbers. But the point is, you want most of them to come back. That's the main goal, not the wins or the losses or who's doing what and who can play where. It's let them keep playing, because you never know how a kid develops over 4 years.
Thank you. This is the last question I have, then we'll open up to the audience. And of course, I saved the hardest one for last. This is a very philosophical one. So how do you, each of you, live a joy-filled life, or a life filled with gratitude, when you've had so much professional success?
You can punt to him first if you want. I'm shocked.
Well, to me, I know who's in charge upstairs, right? Like, and this is a funny story, because I was a head coach 4 years and I thought I knew everything, right? My brother was a head coach at Oil City, where we grew up. He had a rough year, and so I coached maybe 40 games, I don't know. And he had, the previous season, he was up 3 times, like 21-0, and they lost the game. Like maybe 35-14 one game, the other team came back to win. So I go home for Christmas, and I'm like, dude, how can you lose 3 games when you're up 20 points? Like, I've been coaching 4 years, we've never lost a game and we were up 14 points. Like, if you're good enough to get up 21, can't you just manage the game and get the dub? You know, like and as soon as I said it at the kitchen table over Christmas back in 2006, 2007, as soon as I said it, I thought, God's gonna humble me. I said, I know I'm gonna be humbled this year. And then, sure enough, we go out to Independence. They were terrible. We're up 22-0 in the first quarter, and we lose in double overtime. And I know that was him up there telling me, be humble. You're not in charge, kid. I'm in charge. And I'm 100% serious. I went home and told my wife that was God humbling me. And you know, that's why you never boast and you never say, you know, anything is your doing, because it just isn't. And that's I always look back to that game, and I'll never say another word. I keep my mouth shut. I don't say nothing. Right? We just work hard and do the best we can. But there's no doubt in my mind that all the bounces that day were somebody telling me, you got a lot to learn, kid.
Yeah, I've been there too. But you know, we're finite. You know, going for an infinite goal, right? Tiger started saying the goal is to get to heaven. You know, so I look at it this way. Here's what keeps me, you know, as long as I can do it, you know, I know it's a finite number of time, and I remember a little poem called Indispensable, and part of the poem said, you know, if you think that you're the most important man and you're irreplaceable, indispensable, just splash your hand around in a bucket and watch the splashes it makes, and 20 seconds later it goes right back to the way it was before. So Coach and I are going to be done coaching one day. There's a young kid out there that's going to be doing it just as well or better than we are. So I look at it as, while I get the opportunity to do it, I'm going to enjoy the present, because you're not guaranteed the future, and the past is gone. We all make our mistakes. Enjoy the present. And if you stay in the present, that's where it's most fun. And if that present lasts for some in their careers, this 65, 70 years old, God bless. You know, if that's 55 for some people, if that's whatever it is, you know, you're going to stay in the moment. My problem's going to be, I don't know what else I do, so I'm going to try and string it out as long as I can, because, you know, I got nothing else. I like to go play a little golf. I like to be down golf once in a while, but other than that, I got nothing else, you know. So I enjoy working. I'll probably be one of those 80-year-old freshman coaches, you know, that'll be walking with a cane trying to call plays. So, but that, you know, that's what I do. That's what I love. But I realize, you know, it's a finite, you know, number of window, and try and do the best you can. Pay it forward, make it better, be proud of that, and you know, that's what you are. You're helping kids, and if you can help them, and there's a memory when you go back, and you know, you go to a reunion and they tell stories, and you know, those are, to me, you know, going back to those other questions, that's where it really is. You know, when you see the 10 years and 15 years, in the 2001 Father, we had one, you know, the 20-year one a couple years ago at Lake, and I think of the 20 seniors we had, I think 17, you know, made it back, and the Dulce twins came from Arizona and flew in for it and everything, and it wasn't really it wasn't like a big to-do or anything. We kind of just got announced at halftime and sat around and had a beverage and told stories, some of which are way exaggerated 20 years later, but nevertheless, you like it anyways, you know. So that's what the fun of it is, and it's that camaraderie, those relationships that really matter. And if you could make, you know, if those kids feel that that was that special to them, you know, jumping in that lake after winning a 7-on-7, and those are the memories that last, or whatever crazy stuff you did, but if they can pull back on that when they're 35, 40 years old, which some of my former players are, you know, that's really cool. And when they tell you that, there's no price, there's no amount of salary I could make that would ever pass that feeling that I get, you know, when you see that. And that's what I can say.
Wonderful. All right, we have a few minutes for questions. Anyone? You're last. No, I'm joking. Yeah, fine. You pay the bills. You're allowed to ask questions.
Thanks, guys, for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you being here, and your presence means a lot to us. Actually, I got two questions. I've had the opportunity being at Lake Catholic as a chaplain there and watching Tom do his thing, and I've seen you, Tiger, on the sidelines. And the one thing that you have in common, you're both math teachers. And I'm just wondering, does that translate into how you coach in terms of analytics and angles and speed and all that? And the second question is a little more challenging. How do you deal with overzealous parents? The reason I say that is because sometimes when I was a chaplain at Lake Catholic, I would have parents come into my office and ask me to talk to the coach to ask them if their kid could have more playing time. And I think sometimes parents don't understand that their child is maybe not as good as the ones that are playing. And how do you deal with that as a coach? It's a tough question, and I think every coach has to deal with it. But I'm just wondering, especially because you guys have been shown a lot of excellence in the way that you do your coaching. How do you handle that? So the math question, and then
The math one's easy.
Yeah.
If they have 4 guys here and 6 guys here, we're running that way. It sounds simple. It's not. It is. It's a numbers game. Like you try to out formation people. You try to get the right play called, and some teams will put more guys on this side, and then you want to run to that side. I mean, honestly, it's that
I
easy.
think a lot of people up in the stands, or even when they're watching the game, they don't see that. unless they know what it is to coach.
I teach AP Calc and AP Stat, so numbers are easy for me. 11's easy. Counting to 11's not that hard. So, hopefully my quarterback can do it. Where's Jake at? He's here somewhere.
As an example,
there he is. He can count to 11.
As an example, Tiger, when I was on the sidelines for the 2001 championship game against Columbus DeSales when Lake won, we were down 14-0 in the first quarter, and I was talking to Tom about this. It's the only time I ever eavesdropped on the coaches as the priest on the sidelines. He just said, just turn the guys on the defensive line at a diagonal. And they only scored another touchdown, and we ended up winning in overtime. I mean, it was a great call. And it was just like they angled the defensive lineman. I thought, that's all you got to do?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have some great coaches that can make little changes during the game, and that helps us. Offensive line coach, Coach Morrison, and Coach Beeler's great on the defense, and but you try to, counting to 11's not hard, and you try to get the best play called for what the team's doing against you. So that's an easy question. I'll let you take the parent one.
Well, Father, I kind of remember that differently. I thought I asked you to pray a novena at that point when you were down 14-0. When you were eavesdropping, I'm like, you got one, Father, for us? You may need it. And by the way, Tiger talks about if there's 4 here and 6. I teach Algebra 1, so damn it, say that. Sometimes we run into the 6, you know what I mean? I'm trying to get past 5 there with our guys. But no, it's absolutely right. Having some logical thinking in math, I think, does help in organization and that kind of stuff. But I think with the parents, one thing I was thinking, as I became a parent, I started changing my tune a little bit in that I realized every parent loves their kid. I mean, a lot, So I try to explain to parents, you have one person that you're vested in, your son. We have 120, 10 through 12 playing, and another 80 freshmen. So we have 200 boys playing football at St. Ed's. I have 200. And I tell our kids this, and I tell the team exactly this. I say, look, if your parents start talking at the kitchen table that this coach doesn't know, this coach doesn't know, blah, blah, blah. First of all, I'd be glad. Tell them to come in. I'll get on the board with them. I'll talk for 5 hours. I'm not going to talk about you. We'll talk football for 5 hours. They won't last 5 minutes with me on the board. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm talking, boom, boom, boom. They'll say, Coach, okay, thank you for your time. Maybe another time. So that's the first thing. I'll be more than happy to do that with any parent ever. But the second thing is, kind of, understand, some of the accountability stuff, like, son, you come in and talk to your coach. Coach isn't always right. Sometimes we play the wrong guy. I tell her to you. I'm like, what do you think? We got it perfect? That's why you keep competing. We have to make a choice at a certain point in time. Things can change. You keep competing. We think we have data behind it and everything, but there's been plenty of times when those lineups have changed. As the season went on, you just got to stay with it. You just got to understand that. And if you can communicate as a player, I'm talking to the kids in here, as a player to the coach, without using your dad to do it, or your mom, or whoever else, the coach respects you more. I remember I had a situation at St. Ed's. In 2016, we were tied with St. Ignatius, 31-31. We're going down to score to win, it would have been an upset in the regional final. And our kid breaks his ankle, gets kind of pulled down from behind, our quarterback. So there's about 5 minutes left in the game, and I have to put a sub in. Now we had a junior and a sophomore. The junior was kind of the varsity backup. They were both about equal. The sophomore played most of the JVs. I hadn't really said who was the backup because I wasn't really sure. I was trying to, and the junior is a Lake County kid actually, tremendous kid. His brother's at the school now. Went to John Carroll. The sophomore went to UMass, won a state title. Well, anyways, I go with the sophomore at the moment. I said, Garrett, you're in. I saw the junior kind of put his head down, and we go finish the game, and we lose in overtime, 38-31. The next Monday, this junior comes to me and says, Coach, or he maybe called or texted me. He said, Coach, can I talk to you on Monday? I said, absolutely. So he comes in the office and he sits down. He said, Coach, I just want to ask you a question. Why did you pick Garrett over me? And I explained. I said, Zach, the reason I did it is because I think you're both equal. I'm not sure if we'd have played the next week who would have started. I said, in that moment, with that amount of time, Garrett had more playing time. He had played all the JV games, and we didn't play junior. We don't play juniors on JV at that, we hadn't. So he had gotten less reps, if you will, and I felt like just Garrett was better. It was just here, that's what we're doing. And he said, will that have any impact on who's going to start the next year? I said, absolutely not. And I said, listen, I wish I could have played both of you. If we'd have won and played the next week, you would have. I'm not sure who would have started the game. But I said, at that point, with 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, that's what I felt we had to do. Never heard from his parents. Never heard from anything. The next year, we had both of them now coming back. And they were great competition. It's the only time in my career we rotated them every 2 series for 9 games. We were 9-0 and number 1 in the state. 2 in, 2 out. And it was like a bullpen. One went out, they were great friends. We had 2 starting quarterbacks. I couldn't choose who was better, so I started it the first game, we won. I did it again the next game, we won. I did it thinking I was only going to do it maybe a quarter or something. And that year we played 9, and then the senior unfortunately tore his ACL in the St. Ignatius game. And we weren't the same team with playing 1 quarterback. We lost in the second round of the playoffs. So my point in saying that is there's a value to the player coming and talking in respect. As long as there's professionalism between the parent and coach, as long as they're coming from the right thing, I understand that they love their kid, and I try to explain to the parent. I have 100 kids, 120 kids, 50, whatever's on the team. You're seeing it from one perspective. I'm seeing it from a bigger perspective here. And understand, maybe we are off. Let's look at it a little more. Let's get the position coach in there, we'll talk. And I really haven't had that many, they complain, which is fine. My dad complains in the stands. He calls me after the game and goes, why'd you do this? Why'd you do it? That's what everyone's going to do. I say, as long as they don't bother me, I'm fine with it. Criticize all you want. Just don't call me up. But I guess in the end, what I'm saying is, there's value, there's power in the player showing maturity and talking to a coach. And I take a lot of value in that when a kid is mature enough to do that. It gets me thinking, if you know what I mean.
I hope you don't get any more loaded questions like that. That was a tough one. Any other questions from the audience? So John's has a microphone. We have a mic right here, mic symbol in front of you.
This is a comment and also a 2-part question. I remember my finest memories is when we were at an award ceremony, and Tiger, you said that you don't want to have one kid come through graduating from football without having fun, and so I'll always remember that. The second part is for each of you. Can you recall a game or something that was you had to overcome a lot of adversity, and how was your team ready for that? And the last part is, can you name a player that was kind of like, not name them, but can you recall a player that was like a Rudy for your team?
Want to start?
Boy, Rudy, I'm going to think about this one a second. Since it is about family, my son Michael went to John Carroll played, but he's not here. He's got his class right now, and he's going to be a teacher and coach. But he started for us, and people would think it might be nepotism, but it wasn't. It really wasn't. His senior year, he started at about 5'6", 140 pounds. In this side, he caught 35 balls. Had a great year. So if anyone, when you see something like that, everyone thinks, oh, you got all these studs at St. Ed's, and I think, yeah, my kid was 5'6", 140 pounds, playing and doing a good job. And there's many kids like that, actually. But the Rudy, the best story we have 2 freshmen. We kind of have 2 freshman schedules. So the gold is sort of like plays a tougher schedule, and we got green. And you're on the gold team, everything is a freshman. There's been more green team guys that are all high. Like, these kids come from, like, you wouldn't think as freshmen, they can't walk and chew gum. All of a sudden, by senior, they're all Ohio. The first Kevin Burke, who went to Mount Union, was the LaVerde Player of the Year in Division III. He was on the green team. He was on the green team as a freshman. Took him to their first state title in 2010 as a legendary quarterback at St. Ed's. He wasn't more than 5'9", maybe 5'9". He was a hell of a player. So you just don't know how a kid. You never sell a kid short. That's my thing. Kids come in, I think they get intimidated sometimes, maybe coming to St. Ed's, particularly some of the linemen we had this year. But, a little 8th grader comes in and goes, I'm never going to play here. Trust me, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how kids develop and work at it and play. So.
I would say, I coach middle school track, so I get all these kids in 7th, 8th grade and say, hey, you should play football. So we had this kid, he came out in middle school track and threw the disc pretty far. He was tall and strong. And I said, you should play football. I said, you ever play football? He said, no. I said, you should play football. I said, okay. That was my recruiting pitch. He said, okay. He come out in 9th grade, first time ever. You guys, some of you guys in the back know him, David Cardam. And he was an offensive lineman. I would say this is our Rudy story. Mr. Skill Jim would yell at me at every 9th grade game because his son was getting sacked. He's like, get this kid out of the game. He's going to get my son killed. And he was not wrong. His son was getting killed. This guy didn't block anybody. As a sophomore, he played JV. He couldn't block anybody. Skilton was still getting killed. So I'd hear it from Mr. Skilton, you can't put him out. I said, he's got to play. That's the only way to get better. As a junior, JV, not great. Then as a senior, he started right tackle, 15 games. We went to the state championship. We played Loudonville in one of the games. Loudonville was like 14-0, and they were really good. They beat everybody by 60. And they had a defensive end who was all state, and he lined up against this David Cardam. And Cardam handled him. He handled him. And Finkel, you guys remember that. David Cardam he went from never playing a sport until 8th grade track. And he started in a state championship game and handled this kid from Loudonville. I don't know how he did it. He did it though. Like Alchin ran behind him. We went right the whole game and we beat him. But that would be our Rudy story. But there's a lot like that. I could think of 20 kids in 9th grade. My coaches are like, he'll never help us. And 12th graders started in a state championship football game, that's it. That's why we do this. To see those kids work hard at something and see that the hard work pays off and become successful is really what it's all about. And they have self-respect and they're proud of themselves. To me, coaching is these kids work really hard, and to be honest, the best thing we can do for them is make them proud of themselves. If they can walk out of high school proud of what they did and how hard they worked and what they accomplished, they're going to have confidence in life that they can go out there and be successful and be great husbands and get a job and be really good at it. And I think that's what our job is, to take these young men and make them confident, great, caring adults. So that's my Rudy story. What was the other one?
Well, I think it was when you call up games and
Things weren't going well.
things weren't going well, where there was a lot of adversity. Ursuline?
Yeah, I would say Ursuline. No first downs, down 24. Well, here's the best part. We played them in 2010. They got all these D1 guys. They're beating us 24-0 a half, and they beat us 48-0. So 2 years later, same place, same game, same regional championship, same spot, and they're beating us 24-0 at halftime again. There's a lot of fans left. I talked to people that they left. We had no first downs and 8 yards, and we won. We had 400 yards and 38 points, and we won 38-37 in the second half. It was crazy. It was fun. It was the best game I was part of.
I just had to say what you were just saying, Tiger, about you were amazing with our son and Michael and all the boys in his class. You're such a great role model. Your faith, your drive, and you made Michael and helped make him the man he is today. And we can't thank you enough, because I have parents come to me and say, I just want my son to be on Tiger's team. I don't care if he plays. He's such a good person. And so you are a wonderful person, and we're so grateful for your coaching, your role modeling, and your faith.
Yeah, I want to add one thing to that before we get to another question. When I introduced you guys, I didn't do it. The right thing at the beginning was all we talked about was football. But I know Tiger pretty well, and I know Tom because I have a lot of friends that are friends of yours. And what you do for young men and for families and everything you do in your communities, for the St. Ed's community, for the Kirkland community, is unbelievable. So thank you for all that, because that's what we're really here about tonight. It's not just the football wins and everything you guys have done on the field. So thank you for that. Who else?
I loved your story, Coach, about Cole, his uncle. I went to school with him in Miami. He was a punter. So that's a pretty good score. I know the family. You talked a lot about the pillars. You talked a lot about the athletes. You talked a lot about yourself as head coaches. You know, the Super Bowl ad ran last year, He Gets Us. It's going to run again this year, and it's ran in between. I think most of us may know He Gets Us as Jesus.
Your players get you. You have to come and meet them where they're at. You talked about that. What I want to ask you, though, is we didn't talk about your coaches. So what are the 1 or 2 criteria in hiring your coaches to help facilitate what your mission is with the kids and the athletes?
Well, I think for me, you know, one, if you, I remember back in late 90s, maybe early, Joe Paterno was still coaching at Penn State, and he got out there and was speaking, you know, gave like a little talk to the 1,000 coaches that were at the Penn State clinic, and he said, it's becoming rarer and rarer to find a coach that teaches in the building. And that was 20 years ago or more. It might have been in the mid-90s. So, you know, we're fortunate enough that we have about 7 on our staff that are teaching the building, that feel these same pillars, you know, that buy into the same model. In my 9 years at St. Ed's, I think we've had 3 coaches, maybe it's been the same staff, which is hugely valuable. I think it's been the same for Tiger. So, you know, you want guys that are that as well, you know, that care about what the mission is, that care about kids, and it usually works out. You know, it usually works out. I think I'm blessed with, everyone says they have the greatest. I really do feel that we have some really, really good coaches that buy into that love St. Ed's, number one, you know, that love the kids, you know, that go to St. Ed's and wants what's best, you know, for the community in general. And the same with me. So, you know, if one day one of us switched, you know, it'd be fine. I don't think, you know, things would be that really different, to be honest. And that's kind of when you have a good thing going, when you can get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, like I said, when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. And I hired all the Cougs coaches. He had great coaches that really care about kids, and some of them are still with us today, 18 years later. And they get it. They understand that these kids they need someone in their life that cares about them, and you know. And then I'm fortunate. I've hired 3 former players. Eric Ziegler's coaching with us. He played for me. Rossi Santos coaching with us, and he played for me. And Lino DeSapri, he's here tonight, and he played for me. So when you hire guys that played for you, they kind of get it. They understand everything, January through December, the whole aspect of it. So I don't really have to teach them. They've been in the program and understand, you know, what we're trying to do, have a good time, work hard, care about each other. And so that to me is great when these kids that you coach want to come coach with you. That says a lot. So I've been real fortunate with the guys that I have on staff.
Just curious, do you ever see any kids off the field do something that, I don't know if disrespectful is the right word, but not what you would expect them to be behaving like, or what you expect of them, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, in our business, we have 60 to 70 kids in the team. It's not, I don't think, like you say, did you ever see that? It's usually daily. Like I see it every day. Like today I have a kid in class has 38 missing assignments. And then I walked into Mr. Paul's office, the assistant principal, and there was 2 of my football players in there, and I said, well, you guys in here for detention? One of them was rude to a teacher. So I would say on a daily basis, and you know, just like your own kids, you love them and you tell them what they did was wrong. And I'm brutally honest with them, but they know I love them, but I tell them straight up, you know, that wasn't right, that was disrespectful, you can't act like that. You know, we have a little thing we do, they pay the price with their classmates, these guys know. And then it's over with, but you know, it starts with love. They know I care about them, and when I walk in, I can see their eyes go like this. They know I'm gonna find out. Mr. Paul had a kid in there one time that was like, got in trouble, and he goes, you can call my dad, just don't tell Mr. LaVerde. Don't tell Coach LaVerde. The kid didn't care if he called his dad and said he was in trouble. He didn't want me to know, but yeah, it happens. I mean, I'm sure he's got 200 kids in the team. I only got about 70, so I'm sure he sees it every day too.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, you know, in raising kids, your own kids, whatever, it's daily. It's multiple times a day. You know, you get the stories, and you know, it's funny when you get but sometimes of the background of the kid, you know, when you get, you know, some things are just, hey, we can't have this, and sometimes you gotta say, but most of the time it's that tough love. They know you care, and you know, they don't want to see me either, you know, like, and many teachers, the same thing have said, you know, if you just come into class or, you know, say something to the kid, you know, particularly being an all-boys school, St. Ed's is, and, you know, sometimes you have some, you know, maybe some younger teachers or even female, you know, like, if you don't get it, you know, there's 20 boys in the class, you know, like, I mean, you can imagine. So, you know, you gotta, they make mistakes. We have these things, culture cards, like, you know, so if there's a disrespect thing or this, they get a card, you know, type of thing, and then if they do get caught something doing well, they get a card for being a positive, and, you know, the negatives outweigh the positives, you know, when we get the reports, you know, so that just kind of tells you. But I'm brutally honest too, and you know, you get that look. If you look them in the eye and you tell them, you know, that this isn't right, you know, they get the message pretty quick. And when you have that, you know, when your position carries that kind of weight, you could make some difference. You know, you can make some difference in terms of what's being right and what's being done right and what's not. And you know, no one's hey, look, you know, I wish I believe me, I'd have a lot of culture cards myself in the negative direction if they were giving them to me. So, you know, going back to my original comment that, you know, we all need to be saved. That's the main goal. Now, you know, and then some things, you know, then some things are just some things that you can't go back on, you know, but for the most part, you try and rectify, fix, you know, what's that word? There's a word for that. It left my mind. We use it all the time. I can't remember, but.
I'm no English teacher.
That's why I got into math.
Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you both for being here. We both talked about how you're both great role models. Is there anyone besides God in your life that was great role models to you? And what did you learn from them?
I mean, I would say my dad. He was kind, number one, generous, considerate, loving. He loved everybody. He was awesome. When he was dying, he filled out his bracket for the NCAA tournament, and you know, he filled it out, and I was like, "Why'd you pick Xavier?" And he's like, "Because it rhymes with my Savior." And so every year now I fill out my bracket. If Xavier's in the tournament, I pick them to go all the way. I pick it, and if they ever win it, I might win some money. But whenever I can fill out my March Madness, and that's a true story. But you know, he's the one that was instrumental in my family. You know, going to church every Sunday. He lived his life that way. He was so kind. He always had a smile on his face. All my buddies growing up, you know, he was a doctor, so if we'd be outside playing and someone would cut their eye or cut their knee or cut their elbow, he would just, on the kitchen table, just sew them up. Anybody in the whole town would just show up and they'd be like bleeding out of their head, and he'd stitch them up right there in the kitchen table, and he didn't care. He just wanted to help people.
Yeah, I actually brought my dad. My dad's here in the front, but my dad also, no question. I think most of us would say our dad, you know, in ways if we're lucky enough. And you know, to me, my dad was my best friend. I'm one of three. I have two sisters, and I'm the oldest boy. So in an Italian family, the oldest boy. You know, I got to go for a ride with them more often maybe than my sisters. You know, kind of, come on, Tommy, take a ride. And I would never trade those rides back, you know, for anything. And some of the most special moments in my life as a kid. You know, my dad would get season tickets for the Browns, and we'd usually go to Mass, and my grandma's an Holy Redeemer, and then drive down St. Clair, and he'd give me the history of St. Clair. We'd go park at the same spot, you know, and I couldn't wait for those Sundays, you know, as a boy between 9 and my senior year in high school. And we'd go to quite a few of those, and those are some of the best memories of my life. And from that time, you know, when your dad is your best friend, and you have a real confidant, you know, that's pretty cool. And I remember one time I was, you know, having some trouble in 6th grade. Some kids were picking on, you know, you're getting whatever, this and that. And I would always go talk to my dad, you know, what. And he said, Tommy, just remember, you know, whatever happens, you know, you can always come talk to me. And when you talk, you know, when you have that kind of like trust and when you have that confidant, you know, who also happens to be your dad, and you could believe that. And I've taken you up many times on that. So, thanks, Dad. He's right here.
We have time for one more question.
One more?
Up front.
I'll speak kind of as a former player of Tiger. I just noticed in the crowd we have a lot of youth, whether it's kids in elementary school, middle school. Coach, some of your players, Coach Lombardo, your son, just, you know, with having these kids here and Tiger, eventually you'll have some of these kids, some of them will be playing high school football. Just what advice do you guys have for them, even if it's not just playing football, just advice as they progress forward, as they grow into young men?
Get off the phone. Go outside. Play with your friends. Enjoy every second. Wiffle ball, kickball, dodgeball, whatever you can do. Get off the phones and enjoy your life.
I'll leave it at that.
All right, well, thank you all for being here tonight, but more importantly, thank you both for your time. Thank you for being great leaders in the community, serving the community, and most importantly, leading with faith. So we can't thank you enough. So everyone, round of applause.